Well, I'm sure you've all heard of the new 14-point plan from the Finance Minister Malusi Gigaba that's supposed to take us out of recession. I don't think it will. But what it will do is actually exacerbate tensions, particularly within the labour movement, and create conditions for, I think, more conflict. I mean, what it's done is, in fact, taken us back to 1996 to, do you remember GEAR, Growth, Employment and Redistribution? You know, that was the same year that the combined labour movement introduced its famous social equity and job creation document. Very interesting document. GEAR was much, much skimpier. Social equity, on the other hand, was well thought out and was based on the work done by a highly qualified group of economists, etc., who worked for the ANC's own macroeconomic research group. Now, their proposal was very simple at a basic level. It was, let us have redistribution which would lead to greater equity and therefore to greater growth. The government responded with GEAR, which was turning things on its head and said, no, we will have growth. In other words, make the rich richer and some of the wealth will trickle down to the poor. It's that highly discredited trickle-down theory. Of course, there were objections from the unions and from the other alliance partner in the ANC-led alliance, the South African Communist Party, but they were rather muted because they thought they could change things from within. They didn't. And so what happened? We then had, and I wonder how many of you remember, ASGISA. And what was that again? Accelerated Shared Growth Initiative, ASGISA. And this was hailed again by COSATU and the Communist Party, other partners in the alliance, as a break from GEAR, as a breakthrough. When it turned out that it was anything but the sort, it was just going back to GEAR in another form, we then had the NGP, all these acronyms, I'm sure you remember them, the National Growth Path. Then we had the NDP, the National Development Plan. Then we had President Jacob Zuma's famous 9 points that he couldn't seem to recall when he's asked about them in Parliament. And now we have Malusi Gigaba's 14 points. And at the same time, we have Minister Zwane, Minister of Mines, withdrawing the mining charter. What's this all got to do? Well, it's got to do really with the fact that they're pandering not to capital locally or white monopoly or whatever you want to call it, but they're pandering to the ratings agencies because they're panicking about re-rating in November. You know, I'm not sure if you're aware, but there is something below junk. We're at junk status now, much of our debt with 2 of the ratings agencies. But we can go below that. And if we go below that, potentially toxic bonds, we could end up with a flight of, I don't know, 150, 200 billion rand just overnight. But what can we do about it? Well, there are alternatives. But you see, for those alternatives to be put in place will require political will, real backbone. And somehow I don't think that the elites presently in government have the capacity to find their backbone, to develop the political will. I think too many of them basically are compromised, poisoned by patronage and mired in corruption. So that's basically the focus I'm going to look at in my Inside Labour column, which you can access as usual in this platform Fin24 tomorrow, and a version of which will appear in the City Press business section on Sunday. Until then, of course, it's over to you, as per usual, to give your suggestions, your comments, etc., to editor@fin24.com. And for those of you who have communicated with me asking questions about, well, transport for workers, pension questions, I'm sorry that I've been delayed, but I will certainly try to get to them over the coming week, and I will respond to you via email. Well, until then, that's all from me this week. Cheers.